This is Heard Between the Ears, a podcast about candid conversations and human contradictions. We're your hosts, Anna and Kendra. Hello and welcome to Heard Between the Ears. I am Anna and this is
Kendra.
Today, we're going to be chatting about expressing emotions versus processing emotions. So, whether you outwardly express yourself, if they can read it all over your face or your body language, or maybe you're verbal about it versus internalizing, being quiet, needing to think about it, which to be fair, we've talked about this kind of to an extent before, but I think it was maybe less so about emotions and more so about just like personality and sharing and, being in, communication or so it's applicable across the board. Yeah. Uh so I'm curious, and I think we're both somewhat similar because I feel like again, it's all relative. Would you
Right.
say you outwardly express emotion, or are you a processor of emotion?
So I want to say yes or no.
So you are gonna stride the line. We're role
We're
reversaling
rolling.
today.
Right. So I will say, and I think it's because I didn't understand. Like I always used to say that I'm not an emotional person, but like that's a lie because we are emotional beings. Like that is how we were made. We are emotional beings. So I experience emotions. What I think I didn't quite understand until I went into therapy is like I never processed my emotions, not suppressed,
Mm.
never processed my emotions. And so I saw that as me not being a processor as a thing of strength.
Mhm.
I'm not an emotional person. I can like do this, but it's like, no, girl, you were just not processing your emotions, which is not good.
We're like getting right into the nitty gritty right off
Not
the bat.
right into the nitty gritty. So I would say since I started therapy, I have been better at processing my emotions and also more open to expressing my emotions. But I think for a significant part of my life, I was that other person where I did not express my emotions. I was not a processor. I just kind of like held it all in until something broke the camel's back and it just all came out.
We have that in common. Surprise, surprise. Yes. I so similarly, therapy, kudos to therapy. I don't I think, how do I want to phrase? So if a part of you suppresses your emotions so much to the point where you are emotionless, like this is something that honestly has happened to me. And so it's not that I didn't feel a certain way about it, it's that I couldn't find how to express how I was feeling about it.
Yep,
Like,
yep, yep.
I'm not the type of person where I'm going to go scream and get mad and get it off my chest. And like, that's just not me. I know a lot of people who um, have that like fiery side to them where they'd rather just hash it out. Like, that's just not it. Fighting is something that I like avoid like the plague. I hate fighting with people. Um, and so I also am non-confrontational. So it was very hard for me to be like, how do I express how I'm feeling about this? And then it also depends on the type of person you're on, like you're having the conversation with, or who is receiving this information from with you or from you. And just like if they're the type of person who's going to fly off the handle and scream at you, and you're not that like combative personality type, then like it's going to land on you, and it'll probably, in my case, I feel like it just festered. Like
Hmm.
it was just not something that um we were not good communicators. Like we were not compatible in communication, let's put it that way. um so question for you, and question like I can answer this too, so we'll phrase it to the both of us. In therapy, do you feel like you've been given tools for how to process emotion?
Oh, definitely. Because I think one of the things that I've learned, I know, that one of the things that I learned in therapy is identifying my emotion and also recognizing that emotions aren't good or bad. Like we tend to label our emotions as, oh, this is good. This is a good emotion to have versus this is a bad emotion to have. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
emotions aren't tied to anything being positive or negative. Like emotions are emotions, and being able to identify like how you're feeling and either taking the time to step back and processing like, why am I feeling this way? How do I diffuse the situation? Like if I'm angry or upset, how do I diffuse the situation, process it, and then come back later and try to have this conversation again where I can fully be present without like trying to attack this person, because my mom is very feisty. I grew up in a house where she's a very feisty woman and I love her, but I think because she was constantly in your face, even when we had arguments, like I felt like I always had to fight back, which is why
Mm.
it's easy for me to confront people. Um, because like I had that tit for tat constantly with my mom. And so like I feel like now, since post therapy, like I have found a way to like not immediately go in for the kill unless somebody triggers me. Like I have somebody in my life that triggers me like my mom does. And so like I tend to just say whatever, which isn't good. I
Yeah.
just tend to say what it needs to be said because like I'm being very triggered right now, and I'm just like going back to this thing where I'm just like, okay, well, I just have to say something because if I don't say something, then it's just gonna go. She's gonna say, okay, this is done. It's like, but it's not done.
Yeah.
So, but like I have tried, I have gotten better with like not just blurting things out, but therapy has definitely taught me a lot of tools. Like I am not the same person that I was before I started therapy, and I am so happy for that.
Love this for you. Yes. I completely agree. Well, and I can reciprocate the same thing. So something that therapy has taught me is like identifying feelings. And I can't tell you how bizarre it is to I would categorize myself like even growing up as a young girl, like I was emotional. Like if my brothers were like getting on my case about something at the dinner table, I would run away from the dinner table. I'd go upstairs and I'd start crying. And so for the years of my life where I literally felt it was like I felt nothing. Like I was honestly like a shell of a human being. And it's because
Mhm.
I was armoring myself so much to the point where I was like, I don't feel anything. Like I don't feel anything. I might look outwardly happy or like look like I'm fine, but on the inside it was just like like I I couldn't get it out of myself. And so my therapist brought have you did your therapist talk to you about the feelings wheel or the feeling
I
like
actually have the feelings wheel like always up on my computer screen. It's always up because
yes.
it's like, what is this feeling that I'm feeling right now?
Well, and she would ask me, I would go into therapy and she would ask me like how like identify how you're feeling. And it was like I just couldn't come up with how I was feeling. And so having this chart in front of me and literally being like happy, sad, anxious, indifferent, like and to your point of like not labeling something as good or bad, like it is a feeling. It is how you feel. And giving people the space to feel as they feel and not being so reactive to it, like, oh my gosh, like it has been a process for me. And one of the other things that we had to go through, I don't know if you went through a similar exercise. My therapist would be like, Anna, you need to name it. Name the feeling. She would be like, close your eyes. How does this feeling like how does it look? How does it feel? How does it sound? What's its name? What's its color? Like
Mhm.
and just like trying to pull all of this out of me to get to a point where I was finally like processing and having emotions and like the release of crying for the first time in a very long time, it was just like an egg cracking open and all of the everything just like pouring out
Yes.
of me. It's been I mean it's been like it's been a process. processing emotions has been a process.
I totally
Yeah.
agree. When I like was in therapy and I started like understanding the importance of processing your emotions, I find now that I cry easier than it was. Like I cry at the drop of a hat now. Well, not really. That's not true. But I do cry now when things affect me in a way deeply.
Yeah.
And before, when things would affect me deeply, I would never cry about it. I would just like try to figure out, all right,
Like, how do I get
moving
over
to the
this?
next thing.
Right.
Moving to the next thing. How do I get over this? Because I'm not going to stay stuck here. And so
Totally.
now I find myself crying and I'm just like, why are you crying? But it's just like, I haven't really cried a lot in my life. So I'm making up for lost time.
Yeah, I agree with you. Since moving out here, I feel like I've cried more in the last, like I've been here since well, like time is kind of funny thing because like we're doing things in whatever. But anyway, I've
I
been here
know.
for like 4 to 5 months.
4 months.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. But I have cried more here than I have like in the last of most of my adulthood, we'll say. So it's been wild to like process all of those emotions, starting in the last few years back in Cincinnati and then like being here and being like, oh my gosh, like it's all just coming up and rising to the surface for me.
Yeah.
I mean, so one thing that I wanted to chat with you about is so like, okay, outward emotion and expressive outward emotion versus like holding it in. We have both
Hmm.
moved, so like picked up and you move across the country or you move states and you basically start over,
Hmm.
and how that looks and how that feels, from person to person. So outwardly, like there might be a lot of excitement and like happiness and joy, which you express those things. But on the inside, there is also some like loneliness and like depression might be a little bit of a strong word, but like I'll go there, like a little bit of depression, like leaving or grieving your previous life or your previous self or things that felt so easy to then
Hmm.
go into this space of starting over or like like basically what do I do, like it's me here, I have to figure this out.
Right.
Yeah, so like
Right.
you've
Yeah.
done it a couple times, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Mm,
Yeah, I think the hardest move for me was moving from Georgia to Cincinnati, just because like Cincinnati was a space where I didn't know anybody.
yeah.
And I came up here for grad school, so it was a little easier than the second time I moved to Cincinnati, but the first time was a little easier, like I said, because I started grad school. So you're around the people in your cohort that you can figure out how to make friends. But moving the second time in the middle of a pandemic where I didn't know, like a lot of people were moving back home to where they grew up, or just moving to move. Um, and I feel like I was a lot more isolated in the pandemic just because I was actually living with my aunt and uncle at the height of the pandemic. And so I got to talk to someone every single day. And so moving by
Yeah.
myself was really, really hard. I
Yeah.
was just like, I just have to talk to myself now, I guess. Or
Right. Like
I would like remember days where I just would not laugh. And like I love to laugh. And so like when I would recall, like I was like, when was the last time I laughed? I would like I was like, okay, I'm only watching shows that I can laugh at because like it's not okay for me not to laugh every day. And so
mhm.
the pandemic was really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I was living with my ex-husband during the pandemic. So like we saw each other at that point in time, like our relationship wasn't, I mean, it wasn't fantastic. So like, but it wasn't like that it was necessarily bad per se either, we'll call it.
Hmm.
Um, so, but like at least I had somebody in the house, but I'm sure like between the two of us, we were probably like, I'm kind of like overseeing you right now at this point. I'm sure a lot of people felt that way. I think a lot of divorce happened during the pandemic because people were not
I
used to
know
spending
so
that amount
many
of
people.
time with each other.
I know
Yeah.
so many people that got divorced post pandemic.
Hmm.
It was either two things. They either had more kids or they got divorced.
Yeah.
There was no in
Yeah.
the middle.
Right. Seriously. Um, so moving across the country multiple times, starting over, making friends as an adult, like there's a high level of vulnerability there where it's like, you know, to the people who've been the new kid in school, my goodness, like it's so scary. As a kid, you kind of like, I'm sure there's a level of fear there, but as an adult, it's kind of like, hey, I am who I am. So like I'm not going to put a front at this point in my life. Like I'm going to be who I am, and if they like me, great. If they don't like me, then fine, I'll find somebody else to hang out with. But like you have to put yourself out there in a way that feels like very terrifying. And so like I
Oh
oftentimes would
yeah.
cry about that. What if people don't like me, or
I,
like how am I going to talk to this person, or these people don't
yeah.
know me, you know?
Yeah, and Cincinnati is so insular here. So like if you did not grow up here and already have your tribe, like you're basically an outsider. And so it has been very hard to penetrate that. But I've kind of made my own circle of friends, so it's fine now. But like when I moved here the second time and the world started opening back up, and it's just like I really don't have friends that I could call to be like, hey, let's do something. Just like, all right, well, I mean, lucky for me, I like to be by myself. So I'm just like, it has never been a thing for me to go to a bar or a restaurant by myself. Now I can call people, but like, even if I don't want to, I can like still go to the bar and hang out by myself. But if you're not comfortable with yourself or being by yourself, I know that can be really hard to do.
This is something that I struggle with. I don't mind being by myself in my own space, but being by
Hmm.
myself and being like, I'm gonna go to dinner by myself and I'm just gonna sit here and I'm gonna whatever. To the people who find empowerment in that, oh my gosh, good. Like I like bow down to you because I don't know what it is about sitting. Then this is probably like a therapy exercise that I should do. It'll be like, go, go have dinner by yourself and sit there and just like
Yeah.
whatever. Um,
I love it because I don't have to talk to anybody.
do you literally just sit there and just like sit in silence and observe, or like do you
Oh
have a book
yeah.
with you, or like what are you doing?
It depends. So, I wait, first of all, I have a book with me always. So sometimes I read,
Maybe
but
that's my
really,
problem. I need to get like a book to bring with me. When I read,
sometimes
it's
I
usually at
read.
bed. Okay, keep going. I digress. Your turn, your turn, your turn. Sorry.
No, you're fine. So yeah, sometimes I read, but like really, I just love to people watch. Like that has always been my thing. I love to people watch, and so like sometimes I'll overhear the conversation that's going on, and I'm just like, or I just get some juicy gossip that's happening around me. So it's a really fun time.
See, I love people watching too, so you would think that I would like enjoy this, but my problem is if I'm people watching, like I'm probably staring and I'm probably like my mouth is open, or like I'm like craning to hear more. I think I have no cool when it comes to like I'll be sitting at a table and I'll just all of a sudden be like, like I'm zeroed in on what's going on over here, and it's not. I don't
Right.
think that it's, yeah. I've got no cool about me. I can't just be like, oh, I'm like doing this thing and then like hearing.
I'm just doing this thing.
I'm
You
like full on
should,
paying
that's why
attention.
you have a book.
Yeah.
So you have a book open, but you like listen.
Okay. She's giving me the
If
tips on
it's
how to
good, like you're
eavesdrop on people.
reading, or even like I'm an expert. I've been eavesdropping on people since I was a child. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so you just have to look like you're distracted, but like that's why I wear headphones. Like when I go for walks, 9 times out of 10, I'm not listening to music. I'm listening to the conversations that are happening around me.
Hot tip, if you encounter Kendra in the wild, she's listening to your every move. This is what's happening. I just blew your cover.
Oh no. It's okay. Now I'm gonna be listening to music.
So interesting. So when you're out in the wild and you've got your headphones in your book,
Mhm.
to me, it feels like I'm not going to, if I'm going out there to like be present and meet people, it feels like that's kind of putting a barrier up between like
Mhm.
somebody coming up to my table and just like starting up a conversation.
Mhm.
Do you, when you go out and you do that, are you interested in speaking with other people, or you're like, this is my me time and I'm just like, I'm doing what's in front of me?
Yeah, it's usually my me time. Like if I'm choosing to go to a restaurant or a bar to, just be by myself, I don't really want anybody to come with me or interrupt my thought process or whatever I'm doing. And so like it is kind of rude. Like, girl, leave me alone. I don't know who you are. But like if I'm open to meeting people, then I won't take a book. I won't even take it out. And I'll just kind of be like watching the game or whatever's going on, just open to conversation. But
I'm
yeah.
writing some homework for myself. My homework is going to be a solo date or a solo excursion, and
It's
then
really nice.
I'll just report back and see my
Please
findings.
do.
Yeah. Okay, so similar but different pivoting. So when it comes to meeting new people and feelings, something that I've also chatted with my therapist about is my attachment style. So like
Mhm.
it could be any relationship. It doesn't necessarily have to be romantic. It could be, friends or family or whatever.
Mhm.
So there's a couple different attachment styles. You're striving to be a secure attachment style. If
Right.
if anybody's not familiar, there's a couple different, I think four total. So secure is um like you know where you stand, you're good at boundaries, like you can read people, you're open. Then there is anxious attachment style. So these are the people who are constantly a little bit more like cerebral about things and constantly processing and like um when you're meeting people, it's like there's a little bit of like emotional uptick, I would say, that happens. And it's like a lot
Mhm.
of like what if scenarios. There's avoidance. So it's not that you're not open to meeting people. It's kind of like as soon as they get a little too close for comfort, you pull away. And then there's anxious avoidant. So like that's kind of like, in my
Double
opinion, the
whammy.
worst. Yeah. So it's like a little bit of a chameleon. Like sometimes like you're like, oh, this is cool and whatever, and I'm catching feelings. So then you like pull away and then you can like it's that one's the one that's like, oh gosh, like it just feels like the most, it's like a lot, I would think. I would think it would be a lot to be an anxious avoidant attachment style. I am an
Mhm.
anxious
Agreed.
attachment style. So like I feel like I'm constantly just kind of like up in my head about feeling like not only my feelings, but my feelings towards other people or how they're feeling towards me. Which I think tends to read as like a little bit worried, like con kind of constantly worried about how my emotions are like landing on other people or how emotions land on me.
Mhm.
Do you feel like you're gravitating towards one or the other? Any of them?
I am definitely an avoidant attached.
You're an avoidant attachment style. Got it. But the cool thing
It
about this is
is.
like you can change, you can kind of like morph a little bit. So like say with like a little bit of self work, your avoidant turns into secure, or like you can be the more secure person in the relationship. But
Right.
you're an avoidant attachment style.
Pretty much. I don't since I was little, right? So it was always hard for me to open up to people. So, and I feel like when I do reveal too much, I start to push away. Just like, all right, this is getting a little too intense. I'm running away. I'm gonna run away this one.
What does running away look like? Like how do
Literally
you
running
bow,
away.
like literally running away? You don't like gracefully bow out. You're just kind of like, you, I'm out. Like I'm done.
Yeah.
Is this
I
like an Irish
have gotten
goodbye?
better. Wait, what's an Irish goodbye?
It's where you like don't say goodbye to anybody, you just bounce. You just leave. I've done it.
I've done those. I just didn't know that's what it was. So I would say that I have gotten better, maybe. I don't know. I feel like I've got better, but maybe not. With, gracefully bowing out. But for 9 times out of 10, I'm running away.
I'm running away.
I'm
That's
running
what she said.
away.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Oh my gosh.
Really
To be in a
hard.
relationship with somebody like then I on the inside, I'm like, what did I do? What's wrong with me? How come she did that? Like, what's going on? Can I help her? Is there anything I can do? Like, I have all of the internal dialogue about somebody who is running away from me.
And it's so funny because I was actually having this conversation with my friend, and because she's an anxious attachment too. And I was just like, I feel like I attract anxious attachment people because like a lot of my friends are anxious attachments, and then a lot of the guys that I attract are also anxious. I'm just like, okay, this is not how I want to live my life.
That I feel like that tracks because like as an anxious person, the more that you run away from me, the more I'm gonna be like, come to me, like what I'm gonna chase you. That's my new thing. My new thing is I attract, I don't chase. I attract,
Hmm.
I don't chase. It's hard to attract and not chase. As an anxious person, I'm constantly like, "Urgh, be my friend, be my person, be my,
And I think a part of my avoidant is not wanting to be vulnerable with people. And so
Mm,
like new thing is like being vulnerable is okay. People get to know you better when you are vulnerable. You form deeper relationships with people when you're vulnerable.
like
Imagine.
case in point, this
Hmm.
little thing we got going on here. The
Exactly.
vulnerability scale has just like tipped over. Yeah. So emotionally, this is really interesting because I get like at the beginning of the conversation, it was like I ride the line of both worlds. When we switch the conversation to a different realm, it's like, hang on a minute, like back it up. Like I'm gonna push somebody else's feelings and how somebody else's feelings are landing on me. I'm gonna like kind of push those things away.
Hmm.
Whereas like for me, I'm gonna chase those emotions. And I don't know, I don't know if I'm chasing the emotions so much because I mean, I've always been an emotional person, but for my lack of emotion for the longest time, maybe it's
Hmm.
something where I'm like, I love to catch feelings. Like, I love to catch these emotions. I like to feel this way about somebody. Yeah, these like internal dialogues that I have with myself on the regular.
On the regular. I've even had like platonic friends like say like later after we've gotten to know each other, like at first I didn't even know you liked me. And it's just like
Yeah.
what? Because in my mind, I'm just like, this person is really cool. And I'm thinking that I'm like expressing all of these, and I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not at all, actually. And it's just like, oh, okay. I didn't think you got that from me because I thought I was being really open and just like, oh my God, you're just such an amazing person. And I clearly was not. So,
Oh my gosh. Well, things to work on. We're
yeah.
constantly, we have this conversation a lot. We're constantly evolving, changing, shifting. One thing that I wanted to like chat about also is kind of like what we were just saying, like feeling secure in having the emotions that we do have, whether we choose to label those emotions ourselves or somebody else is labeling them for us. Just kind of like the idea of being okay with how like it is how you feel. You feel how you feel. Somebody else feels how they feel, and like validating the person and their feelings. Like I think I've had a lot of, if ever stuff like this has come up, I make a point of saying, because I feel I was just gonna say, just to have these I feel statements I think I heard somewhere along the way, it wasn't necessarily my therapist, but like
Mhm.
expressing yourself in a way where you're saying, I feel
Mhm.
versus you're doing this or I'm, I'm doing that or this is this and that's that. With these I feel statements, does that land for you in a way where you can validate somebody else's feelings or
Oh yeah.
well,
So
yeah.
active listening, what you're talking about is active listening. And so I learned about and practiced active listening when my first job out of grad school was working, doing interviews because we were collecting data for this massive project that we were doing for the state. And so part of that was interviewing people, and like we had to learn active listening because the group of people we were talking to were not the most, you would literally have to pull that information out. And so using those, I think I heard you say X. If I didn't,
Mm,
can you tell me what I got wrong or rephrase it so I'd understand what you're saying? And so I find myself since then constantly saying that. It's become just like a thing that I say or do now, and I don't
yeah.
even realize I'm doing it because I had to do it for so long. So I also feel like when I say, since therapy also, I feel like I say
Nice. Yeah.
I feel, I'm trying not to say I am nervous, I am anxious. I always try to add the feeling because I think when you say I am nervous or I am anxious, you're attaching that emotion to you, or like
Oh.
becoming that emotion that you may not be. And so like identifying that this is a feeling and not who
Hmm.
you are, is something that I've been trying to work on a lot recently. So I catch myself when I say I am nervous. I say, well, I am feeling nervous because that's a feeling and I'm allowed to feel it, but it doesn't mean that that's who I am.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that's kind of where I am right now in this I feel statements.
I feel like I feel like I am also on this feeling identification process
Right.
constantly.
Right.
I like what you said about I think I heard, or it's kind of like that summary statement when like you're wrapping a meeting up, or it's like, so
Hmm.
here are our next steps. So
Hmm.
when somebody is being vulnerable with you and sharing their feelings, instead of being, I feel it, ooh, I don't feel. An answer to that would be like, I hear you. A statement like that where it's like, I hear you, where it's almost dismissive in a way, which we've talked about listening versus hearing or hearing versus listening. But to validate the person with,
Hmm.
I think I hear, or like, I think to give the person that like nod of, I understand how you're feeling, or I've been there before. Like,
Hmm.
how do you relate to that person when they're,
Hmm.
bearing their soul to you or not, when they're laughing and you're laughing with
Yeah.
them, or however
Right.
however the emotions are feeling at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing that I'm not as good at, but I am trying to get better is stop asking people, why do you feel that way?
Mm,
Instead of saying that, saying like, can you explain to me why this makes you feel this way? Because as a child and growing up, my parents would always say, why would you feel that way? And it feels very dismissive. It has always felt dismissive to me because it felt like I wasn't allowed to feel that emotion or express that emotion, was wrong to do that. And so I didn't love how that felt when they did it to me. And so I try not to do that to other people. So I catch myself, not always, but I do catch myself when I say, well, why would you feel that way? And try to
mhm.
say, can you explain to me why that feeling is here? Instead of, trying to
Right.
rephrase it so it doesn't feel like I'm being dismissive and that they can't be vulnerable with me.
Yeah. I feel like, um, gosh, I'm overusing, I feel. My therapist says, tell me more about that. Like, tell me more
Yeah.
about it. Like,
Hmm.
continue to push forward with the, how does it feel? How does it look? What does it smell like? Who, like,
Hmm.
give it a name, like all of those characteristics. like try to describe more so that the person can assimilate with you. Yeah. All these feelings boiling up inside of us. And how it feels good to have feelings, I think. Yeah.
Feeling your feelings aren't always great. I will say that. Sometimes I have a feeling that I don't want to like sit in.
Yeah.
But like once you sit in it and you like process it, you do feel a lot better.
That's a good caveat. I'm in my feelings. I'm all up in my feelings these days. So with that, I have a secret question for you. If you need a minute to
No, I have mine.
process, if you need a minute to process, so I want to know, what is one thing that can, whether it's constantly or maybe not, what is one thing that moves you to tears? So the tears, they don't have to be sad tears, they can be happy tears. But like, what is one thing that moves you to tears?
When I'm laughing way too hard, I will start crying.
Same.
Like literally laughing to tears. That's one way. And then like I watch a lot of like murder mysteries. So I find myself crying when characters are having a revelation about themselves. Like we've seen the character growth, and then it's like they finally hit the mountain of like experiencing like where they were always supposed to be, and it's just really, it's heartwarming.
Yeah.
So I cry at that.
Oh, I like these answers. If somebody can get me laughing uncontrollably to the point where I'm crying, it is just the best thing in the world.
It is the best thing, truly.
Oh, it's the best thing.
But one more. I just thought of something else. Sorry. I just have one more thing. I am also a sympathetic crier. So when somebody cries and I'm looking at them crying, I will shed tears, even though I'm not at all sad. If somebody is crying about something really sad for them, I will cry too.
I feel like that does it. Sometimes that happens to me, but I think it's more seldom for me personally. Yeah. I know people who are like that, where it's like all of a sudden, like you just make eye contact with them. If they're crying, all of a sudden you're also crying. Yeah.
Yep, that's me.
Okay, so one other thing that gets me choked up, and I'll put it that way. If I ever hear the national anthem, whether it's like at a funeral, like for whatever reason, bagpipes at a funeral, that totally gets me. If somebody's singing the national anthem at the start of like a baseball game or a football game or whatever, like that generally chokes me up. It's just something about the voice, like hearing somebody's voice and like being overcome with like this, it's just like emotion. Yeah, it'll move me to tears.
I have the exact opposite reaction when I hear the national anthem, because in third grade I read, like, first of all, in third grade I used to read the encyclopedia. Yes, I am that nerdy. So I didn't realize in third grade that there was more than one stanza of the national anthem. And so when I read all three stanzas, I was like, I'm never saying or singing or respecting the national anthem ever again.
Ooh.
So I have the exact opposite effect.
Wow. She read all three stanzas and now okay. I'll have to read all the stanzas. It'll probably still make me cry. There's something about it. I just can't help it. I feel the way I feel. I hear it and it's something that just wells me up. All right, let's hear your question.
Well, it's good to know, because anytime I want to make you cry, I'll just play the national.
Okay.
I'll play the national
live. I don't think it can be. Yeah, no, it's got to be a live performance. It can't just be like, oh, I'm gonna play this on. Whatever.
So that's the caveat. Got it.
That's the caveat. Live.
Okay, so my question for you is I don't think it's silly, but it might be silly. Who knows? So what is an emotion that you rarely feel? Or like not necessarily rarely, but like this is an emotion that doesn't often come to you and you're always surprised when it does.
Oh, good question. I need my feelings wheel. A good question. My gut instinct, my first answer was fear, like not fear from a sense of like type 2 fun fear. That I feel a lot because I'll be out, like it happened to me the other day actually. I was riding my mountain bike and I went over the handlebars and that scared me.
Oh my
But
God.
like yeah, I'm okay. I didn't break anything, but it was like holy oh my gosh. I'll say fear from a standpoint of like actively going out and seeking fear, like Halloween, scary movies, stuff like
Oh,
that.
that.
I avoid that because I do not like like I do not like that type of fear.
Hmm.
So like I'm not going to the movies to see some Halloween whatever. I'm
Me
not
neither.
going out to the haunted houses to like be scared.
Hmm.
I do not like that feeling, so I will avoid it.
Oh, same.
Yeah.
I agree. My emotion that I don't feel often and it always surprises me when it happens is jealousy.
Ooh, I'm a
I
jealous
don't
person, so
it doesn't but jealousy doesn't it's not an emotion that comes to me often, but like when it does, I'm just like, okay, what's going on here? I don't
no, that's it.
know or I don't understand.
Yeah, and it catches you off guard.
It catches me off guard. I'm just like, girl, what? Because I like to accept people for who they are and like understanding that everyone's path is different. And so
Uh-huh.
like what is it to be why should I be jealous of somebody else who's walking down a path that I will never be on,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Or a journey that I'm never going to, because my journey is completely different. It may look the same outwardly, but like internally, our journeys are different. So, like, what is there to be jealous of? And so, like, when it happens, I'm just like, girl, what is happening? I don't like this
Yeah.
feeling. I want to avoid it.
Interesting. Yeah,
Mhm.
I didn't even think about jealousy popping up. I need my feelings wheel in front of me. I got to dig it out. It's not, I'm gonna have to put it on like the refrigerator or something like you do and on
Yeah,
my
mine is
computer.
always up. Mine is always up.
I haven't pulled mine out recently. I need to process some emotions and journal about it, maybe. All right. Well, I feel like that wraps up another great conversation of expressing emotion versus processing emotion. Thank you very much for
We had a
chatting
great
with me.
conversation.
I know we sure did. That flew by. Until next time, yeah?
Hmm.
All righty, girl. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. If you like the podcast, please like and subscribe to the podcast. Drop a comment, leave a review, connect on social media at Heard Between, and keep coming back for more. Until next time.